Well, there's the $100 bill. That's our friend Benjamin Franklin. Talk about him a lot on these shows over the last 4 years or so. I was talking to some high school kids over the last week, and I asked them if they could remember some of Benjamin Franklin's greatest sayings. They didn't have a clue. But anyway, I've got Benjamin Franklin up tonight because he always said that a penny saved is a penny earned. He encouraged people to save before they spend, as he did himself. He was a wise man. People don't like to do that anymore, especially our big spenders. On the Board of Selectmen, there are 3 of them. They like to spend before they earn, and they like to spend your money. And I'm having this program tonight to emphasize once more the spending on the Board of Education and the efficiency that's absent and the accuracy that's absent from their reporting and their record keeping. When Wayne Dove, 3 town managers ago, during this administration, started to examine the spending of 65% of our budget in the Board of Education, I'm pretty sure he was appalled. I watched him in the meetings. He was pretty sure there was quite a bit of money to be saved there. That could be used for other things in our town, like roads and building maintenance and more policemen, that kind of thing. So he set out to try to get all these people talking to each other in an effort to come up with a plan for reducing the Board of Education's budget so that the money could be saved and moved around to the town and the fund balance and things like that. He wanted to run the school system efficiently. He had a master's degree in business, was very smart, had a lot of experience around the world dealing in business, so it was very hard to fool him when the reasons came up for why we can't be efficient. For example, having one computer system for the town and the schools. I think they tried that one on him. They said that couldn't be done. But anyway, while they were going through that whole process, these 4 fiscal conservatives and the 5 before them in the last, well, mainly this time the 4 fiscal conservatives, were right with him. They were trying to help him. They were trying to help him understand the problems in our budgeting and expense side of the education system, 65% of our budget. And while they were going through it all, they wanted to take 7th and 8th grade from Gilbert and move it from K through 8 and move it up to Gilbert. It was a big push, a lot of meetings. Parents were there, everybody. They had many, way too many meetings. The big spenders were there trying to slow the process down, asking them to think more about it, plan it more, and all that kind of thing. And the fiscal conservatives were there trying to encourage them to come up with a plan for success and move 7th and 8th grade to Gilbert. I talked a lot about that last week, so I won't talk much this week about it. But what happened during that whole process was the Board of Education, the superintendent of schools, said that if they moved 7th and 8th grade to Gilbert, they would close a school. And the school building committee looked at these schools to see which one would be more practical to close, taking all the reasons into consideration. There are plenty of reasons why you can and can't close a school. But they were planning to close a school. And then when the town referendum, budget referendum, and the 4 fiscal conservatives voted to reduce the Board of Education's budget instead of increase it to take advantage of the savings that were going to be achieved by moving 7th and 8th grade to Gilbert. Well, once they did that, the Board of Education said, oh, no, we're not going to close the school. We'll wait a year to close the school. We want to think about it. To me, that's a stalling tactic, as I've said on previous programs. So tonight I want to talk a bit about that because I know everybody in this town can understand that you can't have schools half empty and run them efficiently. Doesn't make any sense. Everybody understands that. So you see here a cup. There's marking on there. It could be read as being half empty. It could be read as being half full. We also have a gas tank. This is a half empty gas tank. Or you could say it's a half full gas tank. Now we will show a half empty pie plate. That could be deemed as half empty or half full. But it's pretty obvious that somebody ate half that pie and somebody used half that gas, if it was ever full in the first place. Now, I'm going to go to the clipboard for a little while to talk about this school situation. I'd like to remind you that all the programs up to the election and past, for those that are year-round, can be seen on the internet worldwide 24/7 at www.ctv13.net. Takes about, I would say, 4 or 5 days to get it up there after it's shown on live TV, Channel 13, or Channel 15 if it's a Board of Selectmen meeting or a Board of Education meeting or a town meeting of some sort. So you have to wait a few days for these programs to actually get up onto the internet, and then they're there for about 8 weeks, and then they're replaced by another one in the series or by somebody else's program if there are no more in the series. So I want to remind you about that because no matter where you travel in the world, if you're interested in Winsted over the next couple months or forever, you can look on the internet. Now, on average, our 4 costly schools in the town of Winsted are half empty or half full, whatever you want to say. They're roughly half empty. So we're paying a lot of money for the upkeep of these 4 schools, the maintenance of the 4 schools, the energy for the 4 schools, and all the costs, the repair of the 4 schools, the running of the 4 schools, even though they're half empty. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That is a luxury that everyone can understand that our town can't afford. And we certainly can't go to the taxpayers for a supplemental tax increase to raise money that we could raise by closing a school. Now, that's a very important point I want to make tonight. You can all understand this. This is not rocket science. I'm going to start by talking a bit about the 7th and 8th grade move to Gilbert, which is done very successfully. I'm sure there's a few problems and bugs to be worked out. I hear there's a meeting here in a few more days where they're going to talk about the success of this move. But anyway, the students are happy, the parents are happy, the teachers that moved up there are happy. Everybody seems to be happy. So I want to show you some of the numbers now. I got these from, once again, from James Roberts and Marcia Sterling, who've been digging into these numbers for about 5 years now, maybe 4 years, somewhere in that neck of the woods. So the 7th and 8th grade move to Gilbert, which is done, saved us in the former K through 8 area, now in the K through 6 area, $1.8 million. So you'll see a minus there. That's from the minus on the K through 6 budget. They don't have to manage the 7th and 8th anymore. They don't need the money to do so. So we subtract $1.8 million because they don't have 7th and 8th grade anymore, and the costs associated with running 7th and 8th grade. Now Gilbert does have 7th and 8th grade, so we're going to add $1.3 million that Gilbert has to spend to run 7th and 8th grade. It's an interesting number because the K through 6 number, when it was K through 8, was $1.8 million, not $1.3 million. That's interesting in itself. So that means that by moving 7th and 8th grade to Gilbert, we've already saved $600,000 or so. Maybe I might have made a little mistake there. Maybe it was $1.2 million. But anyway, it's in the neighborhood of $500,000 or $600,000 saved. And that's already achieved. It's done. We moved. There's a little closing down that had to be done at K through 6, and there's a little winding up that had to be done at Gilbert. Where is that money? Why are we going out to the taxpayers for that $500,000 or $600,000? It's already been achieved. Now, in addition to that savings, we were supposed to have one of the schools closed, as the Board of Education said they would do, and the superintendent over the last year or so. So we were supposed to have a closing of one of the schools. And should we close a school, and the two in contention seem to be Batchelor or Pearson, and most people who study the situation think Batchelor probably would be the one to close, although nobody's made any decision on this. But if we do close Batchelor, the sooner the better, we'll save another $430,000. in addition to the 500,000 or 600,000 we just talked about for moving 7th and 8th grade up to Gilbert. So now you're up around $1 million. Or if you choose to close Pearson for one reason or another, instead of Bachelor, then the savings will be about $730,000. So then you're up over $1 million. 5 or 6, you're up plus 730,000. That should get you pretty much what you need to run the schools. Shouldn't have to go out for a supplemental tax increase. And I think that's very interesting. I want you to think about that while that slide is up. We've already saved 500,000 or 600,000 just by moving the kids up there, because for one reason or another, Gilbert's doing it more efficiently. And we can save either 430,000 more or 730,000 more by closing one of the two schools. Now, you can see what the fiscal conservatives are getting at here. We have a lot of money there that we've reduced in expenses by moving 7th and 8th grade. Now, in each case, for you doubting Thomases, in each case, this leaves two principals. We'll still have two principals. We will eliminate one principal. These are the assumptions made. And the superintendent will be for the two schools, and the other superintendent will manage the other building. As you know, we have two superintendents, one K through 6 and one at Gilbert. I think that's one too many. But for this particular example, we left the two superintendents in. Now, most of the numbers, if not all the numbers, that James and Marcia used to come up with these predictions and savings and assumptions come from the Board of Education or superintendent themselves. Now, the costs I talked about for closing a building are the hard costs associated with the buildings. They do not include some of the soft costs of the teachers kept on staff to help manage operating out of 3 buildings rather than 2. So there will be some costs involved there, and I don't have any numbers for that. They're not going to be humongous, but there will be some costs in there. There'll also be some savings by using the superintendents to help manage the schools and getting a little more, and also for getting rid of one of the principals. Now I want to talk about some of the reasons why these schools are half empty and not moving towards being more full. And that is because, as we all know, we've heard it, read it in the papers, talked about it, the cumulative enrollment decline of our K through 12 system. A lot of other towns have it too, and cities. We're not the only ones. When I graduated in Torrington and Joyce graduated, there were about 350 students in the graduating class. I think nowadays it's 240, 245, gone down by a third or so. Now, just to show you our cumulative enrollment decline since 07-08, we have dropped 20% of our students. We have 20% less students now than we did in 07-08. And on the way to that 20%, we had, of course, declines. But since 07-08, we've declined 20%. Since 08-09, we've declined 14%. Since 9-10, 7%. Since 10-11, 5%. Maybe in 11-12 it'll be 3%. Maybe in 12-13 it'll be 0%. We don't know. Maybe somebody can forecast that, but I don't have any numbers for that. But we are losing students, and that means we have more capacity that's not being utilized in the school systems. So I have another chart here with the help of James and Marcia again. All these slides are with their help. They did the numbers over the years and let me have them upon my request. So the capacity of our 4 schools versus the students. Bachelor's capacity is 542. Most of these numbers come from the school leaders themselves. They're not James and Marcia didn't make these up. You can check with them if you want to know who the source of these numbers are. Bachelor, 542 capacity. Hinsdale, 620 capacity. Pearson, 700 capacity. And Gilbert, 600 capacity. Now that's a number I'm interested in. I want to follow up on that because I've always been told that Gilbert was built to house 850 students. And on my past programs, I've said, well, we must have a lot of capacity up there. But according to James and Marcia, Gilbert has capacity now for about 600. So I don't know what happened from when it was built to now. Maybe, our people are a little heavier nowadays. Maybe they take up more space, but something's happened there. They're utilizing the space differently, or maybe one way or another I got the wrong input when I was told that it was built to house 850 students. So things have changed there, and it's now 600 unless there's a mistake here, which I doubt. This number came from Gilbert, so I don't think it's wrong. So the total capacity of the 4 schools is around 2,436, plus or minus. That's a total capacity. Now take a guess at what the total enrollment is. Everybody in your living room watching television tonight, just take a guess. What do you think it is? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's about half that number. The total enrollment is 1,240 students. And that's why we say these 4 schools are now running about 50% capacity. So you got lights on everywhere, you got heat on everywhere, using energy, maintaining everything, repairing everything, eliminating all kinds of hazardous materials in various schools, etc., etc. Costing way more than it should in our school system. Now, it's often said by the big spenders and their followers, supporters, that people just don't want to pay for education. They don't want the kids to have a good education. They don't want to spend their tax money on education. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Matter of fact, what people really want to see is transparency. They want to see the schools run efficiently. They want to see the test scores improved. They want to see audits done on time. They want to see numbers that are certified by the superintendents to be accurate. They don't want to be the last town in the state to get their audit in for fiscal year 9-10. Still isn't in yet. Probably got a little while to go. I've been told the auditors are moving in here in a week or two, if not already. And there will be some pretty high caliber people there trying to get this audit done so we can find out where we stand and whether or not we need to do another ED 001 for the state and for the auditors. Now, closing bachelor, and remember, most people think that's the one that should be closed, people who have looked at the situation, all the pros and cons, and weighed it all up. Closing bachelor leaves 1,320 K through 6. Versus approximately 670 pre-K through 6 students enrolled. So you got capacity here, again, much more than the number of students enrolled. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about the next problem. It's very, very, very clear to most people that are fiscally conservative throughout the town and will be voting in the next election. I hope for the fiscal conservatives and not the big spenders. The fiscal conservatives cross party lines. They're not just all Republicans, they're Democrats, independents, unaffiliated people. Everybody's got some. And probably an even split there one way or another. But we've been run by fiscal conservatives for the last 4 years. Most of our town managers seem to be fiscal conservatives. They have a hard time getting by the big spenders and haven't been very successful at that. That's why our revenue's down and our costs are going up despite the greatest recession since the Great Depression. So I want to talk about the next problem now, which is the inaccuracy of the information coming from the Board of Education. Very inaccurate. Very late. Nobody trusts it. Nobody believes it. Everybody questions it. At a high turnover of people in the K through 8 part. Remember, we're mainly talking about K through 8 and K through 6 here, not Gilbert. Gilbert seems to, have its house in order. It may spend a lot. Maybe people aren't happy with that, but at least they have accurate numbers, and they can stand behind them. They don't seem to have the turnover in the finance department that they do through the K through 8, K through 6 area there. So now I'm going to put up fiscal 9-10 information that I have said on the program before to try to crystallize what the real difference is here between the Board of Education and these fiscal conservatives and the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen. So, once again, fiscal 9-10 results of the spending of our education system, 65% of our budget, for that fiscal year. We, the superintendent, the Board of Education, and superintendent of schools have submitted 3 ED-001s. It's like filing your tax return. It's, what did you earn this year? When you fill out a tax return, you give it to the federal government. The ED-001 is, what did you spend this year? What are your actual spending? You send it to the state, you send it to the auditors. State doesn't really pay much attention to it, I don't think, I'm told anyway. But the auditors do, and they go through it fine-tooth comb. And when they go through it, not only do they audit it and point out any problems, but they also point out problems in the way you're running your finance department, both the town and the school. I've sat in meetings with the Board of Selectmen in the audience. I've been in the audience when these auditors were making their report to the Selectmen and the Board of Finance. And they always have a lot of suggestions on how we can improve the way we keep our books and how we handle our finances in our town. So anyway, over the last couple of years, we submitted, to date, 3 ED-001s for that year, all certified as accurate by the superintendents. There were 2 superintendents involved, one that was here 5 years and one that's only been here a few months. He's already submitted one a few weeks ago. And these were submitted, the first one, 9/13/2010, 11/23/2010, and 9/13/2011, almost a year later than the first one for fiscal year 2009-2010. Now I'm going to go through what these numbers were, the differences in each of the years, and I put the years down like I did the last time. The EDS grant, special needs, 9/13/2010, we spent $7,021,247. That's what we said in our first ED-001, 9/13/2010. 11/23/2010, we changed that to $7,020,948. And then 9/13/2011, we told the state and the auditors that no, we didn't spend $7 million and change. We spent $5,321,721. Now that's quite a difference, isn't it? It's better than $1.5 million less. That lost them quite a bit of trust. Lost them quite a bit of goodwill. It's quite a surprise. And remember, one of the things that CEOs and chief operating officers and chief executive officers and chief financial officers always say, no surprises. We don't want any surprises. Tell us the truth. Give us the facts all the time. And don't pop up someday with a big surprise. Now, this big surprise happens to be over $1.5 million less. If it were more, we'd really be in a lot of trouble. We're still not sure it isn't more. I mean, the jury's still out till we get the audit approved. So this is a surprise. This is the kind of thing nobody likes. Taxpayers don't like these surprises. The state doesn't like these surprises. The auditors don't like these surprises. The Board of Finance doesn't like these surprises. The selectmen don't like these surprises. The Board of Education doesn't like these surprises. The superintendents don't like these surprises. Nobody likes these surprises. So it leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and it encourages and fosters distrust for the people producing the numbers and certifying the numbers. Now, in addition to the EDS grant, there's other grants. Look at this one. This is interesting, too. I put two chokes in here because there's two surprises here. One big surprise, really. Another big surprise. The other grants were 9/13/2010, we reported, certified by the superintendent, $1,367,272. Then on a couple months later, 11/23/2010, we changed that slightly to $1,372,368. But lo and behold, just a little while ago, 9/13/2011, we said we spent $2,480,670 certified by the superintendent sent off to the state and the auditors. I hope it's off to the auditors. I'm pretty sure it is. But anyway, I put two chokes in there. That's a pretty big jump, isn't it? You know, $1,100,000 or so. Do you think that breeds trust? Do you think that breeds understanding between the town and the Board of Education and the taxpayers and the state and Uncle Tom Cobley and all? No, doesn't. Just widens the gap. So when you ask people, especially the fiscal conservatives and people in all these various committees, commissions, subcommittees we have in this, running our government, you can understand why they have trouble communicating, getting along with each other when you get these kind of surprises in the 65% of the budget of the town. Hard to plan. I took you through a program of top-down budgeting. It's hard to plan if you haven't got an idea what you spent in previous years and haven't got confidence that it's accurate. So, guess what? We still don't have an agreed budget for the fiscal year we're in. 2/11, 2/12. It's already been in a few months. Still don't have an agreed budget. The town has given them a budget. The state wants something different, and the Board of Education wants yet more, of course. They haven't closed the school. They haven't passed the audit for 209, 210. Then they got to do the 210-11 one. That's going to be interesting. So we're behind. Not good. So here again, big surprise. The golden rule, no surprises. We don't want to see any surprises. We want to know every week, every month, every quarter where we stand. And the Harvard Business School reviews everything on a quarterly basis. That's what they tell you to do. Make sure it's accurate so that you won't get a big surprise halfway through, 3/4 through, or at the end of the year. Your financial spending. Now, regular education, 9/13/2010, $13,025,210. Then that was certified by the superintendent. The Board of Education, of course, always says, well, we didn't know. We didn't know that was, nobody told us. We didn't know he didn't submit those numbers. We didn't know you were spending that kind of money. Well, that's what the Board of Education is supposed to know. I'll talk a bit about that later if I have time, but they're supposed to know it. They're supposed to do like James and Marshall, one way or another. They're supposed to set up checks and balances, use the auditor if necessary, use the town finance director or outside CPAs if necessary, like they're doing now, to try to get to the point where we don't have any surprises from week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. So here we are, 9/13/2010, $13,025,210. And then in November, just a couple months later, we say, oh no, sorry. It wasn't $13,025,210. It was $11,600,261. Surprise, surprise. I put 3 chokes on that one. Now, we come back a few weeks ago, new superintendent, recently resigned, accountant, financial director, whatever you want to call him, the school education, K through 6. 9/13/2011, surprise, surprise. The $11,600,261 was wrong. It was really closer to our original number. It was $13,546,927, certified by the superintendent of schools, sent to the state and hopefully the auditors. So here we go again. Inconsistency. We're off $500,000 there between 2010, 9/13/2010, and 9/13/2011. Those are pretty big numbers. It's a consistent pattern. All these slides I'm putting up here, all these certified numbers by the superintendents of the school, Board of Education, they all show inconsistency, inaccuracy, and untrustworthy numbers. Now, the town spend 9/13/2010, $20,159,736. And then a couple months later, it turned out to be not $20,159,736, but $18,664,034. Isn't that interesting? It always seems to be about $1.5 million for some reason here. Well, anyway, back in 9/13/2011, a few weeks back, the new number is $18,700,427. Now, it's pretty close, still off. $36,000, but again, Surprise, surprise, inconsistency and accuracy is untrustworthy. Does not help. Now, total spend. 9/13/2010, 21,482,335. A couple months later, 19,991,729. Surprise, surprise. And then when we get to 9/13/2011, a few weeks back, you had 21,154,523. Now that's less than reported 9/13/2010, and more than we reported 11/23/2010. So anyway, the big question is, what about this $1,500,000? And once we get the audit done, everything comes out fine there, we might be better off. Maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. That should be, a month or two away, maybe some weeks away, I don't know. But you can see, voters, why people don't want to have a supplemental tax increase. We could close a school and save quite a bit of money. We did save a lot of money, $600,000 by moving 7th and 8th grade up to Gilbert. That's for starters. And we have all this inconsistency in the spending pattern here, the projecting pattern. That all has to be resolved before we can feel comfortable. Now, I want to say, I don't have too much time left, but I do want to say that there are two people that are involved in this Board of Education that are running for office. One is Susan Hofnagel. She's presently the superintendent of schools because the last one resigned for various reasons. She's only been in there a short period of time, but she's been on the Board of Education for quite a few years. She's a big spender. She's a Democrat. Not a fiscal conservative Democrat, a big spending Democrat. And James DeVito, who's on the Board of Education now, I think he might be a fiscal conservative. I've talked to James many times. But he doesn't vote that way. He votes like a big spender. And both of them have been on the Board of Education throughout this whole ordeal, through this distrust, through this refusal to close a school, through the suing of the town, and through all these inaccurate reports that have been given to the state and the auditors. So what I say to you all is, don't vote for either of these big spenders. Don't vote for Susan Hofnagel for the Board of Education that she's running for in the next election. And don't vote for James DeVita, who's running for the Board of Selectmen of all places. We've already got enough big spenders on the Board of Selectmen. We don't need another one. In my opinion, and this is just Brian's opinion, I've been watching James DeVita for quite a while, and Susan Hofnagel, they're followers. The Democrats did say in the paper, one of their co-chairmen said, they like people who follow the party lines. They don't like people who don't agree with them. Even though they said in their last campaign they wanted to work with others, they couldn't even work with people in their own party. Never mind people from other groups in the town. So I would say, don't vote for Susan Hofnagel. And don't vote for James DeVita What you want to do instead is vote row B, which are the fiscal conservatives, Kenneth Fracasso, Karen Beadle, Glenn Albanesius, and Marcia Sterling, who's done a lot of stellar work over the last 5 years. She's very, very smart, very well educated, very prosperous to a degree, and she works with the Board of Education and the fiscal conservatives to try to get to the bottom of this enigma we have called the Board of Education and the education budget. Now on row D, you'll find Lisa Smith. She's a fiscal conservative Democrat, self-professed. You can see her flyers. I'll probably put them on one of my shows here in a few weeks. You'll also find James Roberts, who's helped with all these numbers and been working on 4 or 5 years with Marcia Sterling. He's running for the Board of Education. So I say, rather than vote for Susan Hoffnagel and James DeVita, who've been carried along on the tide here for the last many years, vote row B for the fiscal conservatives and row D for fiscal conservative Lisa Smith and fiscal conservative James Roberts. And we'd rather have James Roberts on the Board of Education than either Hoffnagel or DeVita. Now, DeVita's not running for that. He's running for selectman, but he does. I wouldn't vote for him for selectman. And I don't advise you to. Now, I got about 5 minutes left, so quickly I'm just going to put the picture of some of these candidates up. And I'm going to just tell you a bit about them, not much, because we don't have a lot of time. But that's Kenny Fracasso. He was mayor last time around. He's a fiscal conservative. He's led this approach on the schools and the questioning of the state. The state recently said, I read in the newspaper, I haven't seen anything from them, but they recently said that Winston's one of the first that's ever challenged them on this fact that as we downsize in our school system, they want us to spend more money. And these fiscal conservatives are working with the state trying to resolve this issue, and it will take time. But Kenny is leading that effort, and he's helped by the other fiscal conservatives that are on the ballot, on the selectmen group, and the Glenn Albanesius, who's on the right on your screen there. He's been in there for a couple of years as a selectman, and he's also, of course, on the finance board. They all are. Then on the left, you have Karen Beadle. Karen Beadle, she's got a long history, 16 years of service to the town, various boards and commissions and committees and subcommittees, and has done a great job. She's a fiscal conservative. Well, actually, in the last, before she got into this group, she was on the finance board when she was on the Board of Education, so she knows a lot about what's going on in there. And she's trying to help correct it and get it right. And then you'll see in the middle up there, Marcia Sterling, who's been doing a lot of work to try to come to grips with these numbers and the spending and the funding for the Board of Education. She's also interested in trying to get the test scores up and having a competitive system, both for grades and for cost. And then I'm going to put up the old picture of James. Well, first let's do Lisa Smith, because she's done a great work this time around. She's a fiscal conservative Democrat. All you Democrats that are fiscal conservatives and Democrats in town, or all you unaffiliated, independent party, taxpayer association people, Republicans, I'd advise you to vote for Lisa Smith. She's done a great job here. She's had to, a lot of problems with her own party. She stood up tall and managed her way through them, and she's the only Democrat that I can see this year who has tried to work with everybody on the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, despite the promise by the other three to do so. They didn't do it. Can't even get along amongst themselves. Now, Lisa can get along with them, but they don't like the way she votes, and they kind of, from what I hear, have ostracized her, so she's running on her own because she knows that she can do a lot of good for the town and has already done a lot of good for the town on various committees and commissions and things, and as a select person and a member of the Board of Finance. And then last but not least, I want to put up Marcia and James. That's James Roberts. I don't have an individual picture of James, but he's running for the Board of Education. Fiscal conservative, done a lot of work over the last 4 or 5 years and knows a lot about it. A lot of the numbers I put up here come from him. I'm not saying that I don't make a couple mistakes, maybe in interpretation or writing them down, but James is in there, right in the middle of it with Marcia, and he deserves your vote for the Board of Education. I'm going to say goodnight now, and I'm going to put up the picture, once again, of Ken Fracasso, who's made a lot of tough decisions in the last couple of years. Matter of fact, in the last 4 years, especially in the last 2 years. He made a lot of tough decisions. He's worked hard. He and the other fiscal conservatives, as you can see from Marcia and James's work, they do their homework. They get in there and they try to find out the facts. And then they try to act on the facts. And they try to do good for the town and the taxpayers and the schools and the kids, etc. With that, I'll say good night. See you next week.